pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Moines County Board of Supervisors meeting Friday, May the 13th. Well, I'm just going to see if anybody caught me.
Tuesday, May
the 13th.
24th.
It could have been Friday, the
Okay.
way things started out this morning.
In a mailbox?
Is there any changes to the agenda? Mr. Brooks, do you have any?
I do not.
Okay, seeing no changes to the agenda, we shall meet with department heads and elected officials. Sarah Doty, payroll clerk, auditor's office.
Good morning. Just keeping busy as usual. Nothing new to report at this time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Colin, IT department,
Just keep busy like always. Not got nothing to report, so.
thank you. Sheriff Glendinning.
No major news our way either. We do have a trial going on this week, so there'll be some enhanced presence. That trial may run into next week, so we'll have screening and some additional deputies up on the third floor. I haven't checked the jail population this morning, but it was 67 last night, so somewhere in that neighborhood, we're hanging strong there. We had 2 adults out of county because of conflicts.
Maybe we had a good evening, we didn't add any more to you.
Hopefully.
Rodney Bleasner, maintenance.
Good morning. Really busy with a lot of different projects. An update on the front steps. They did the last pour for those yesterday morning. So hopefully, they're hoping by Monday to have everything done and opened up for Monday, but kind of dependent on the weather. So I need to thank Brian and his crew, Devin, for helping with concrete testing and whatnot last week. So I know them guys are really busy. I really appreciate them helping out and being there through that process. Just want to give a shout out to them guys for their help, so thank you. Other than that, we just got a lot going on.
Okay.
We've got a work session.
Okay, thanks, Rodney.
Thank you.
Mary Johnson, county auditor.
Good morning. Election update, 2 weeks until the primary election. We had the last day to request a ballot to be mailed was yesterday at 5 p.m. and we received several of them, so we got all those mailed out yesterday. Absentee voting continues in the office through June the 6th till 5 p.m. During those next 2 weeks, is our office hours are only 8 to 4:30. But we will be open Saturday, June the 4th, from 8 to 4. And so far, we've had a total of 304 absentee ballots. Way down compared to what 2 years ago was, whenever they sent out all the request
Yeah.
forms. But hey, it's enough to keep us busy. And just a reminder that Monday is Memorial Day, and the courthouse will be closed.
Okay.
So that's it.
Thank you, Terry. Jared Lassner, Southeast Iowa Regional Planning.
Morning, land use, just keeping busy as always. I do have 2 items on the agenda today, and apart from that, there's really nothing in particular to highlight, so.
Okay, thank you. Ken Heinman, Seal Region.
Good morning. Yep, things are going well, just staying busy. We've continued to do we got a couple more contracts we need to get done before June 30th, and so we're working on those. I just appreciate IT did the updates on our computers this week. You know, it's just something they always do, and I just appreciate that the computers still work well, and the lawn gets cut by maintenance, and we have a lot of people that contribute to our services, and we appreciate Rodney and Colin and all their support that they give us. So, nothing else.
We knew that you couldn't do Colin's job, but we're gonna buy you a push mower. Is that okay?
I think I could do that if you need me to.
The wheels are always turning, Jimmy's always spinning.
Thanks, Ken. Janelle, how's the treasurer's office?
Good morning. We're keeping busy. We should get the proof back today from the Hawkeye for publication of the tax sale lists at the end of next week. So keeping busy with that.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Brian Carter, Secondary Roads.
Good morning. Plenty of stuff going on, but got some guys mowing, working on culverts. Obviously have Upper Flint closed. They're in pavement removal still, and moving along. Pleasant Grove is coming along good. They won't be completely done, I don't anticipate till next week. I think there's an outside chance it could open Friday until they can get some stuff finished up at the end of, sometime next week, so. But I would say maybe an opening Friday or at the latest sometime early to mid next week. So I'll try to let you know once that's done, or open at least. So it's coming good and it looks good, actually, I was through it yesterday. And then, of course, I told you Geode's open, went through there yesterday, that looks good. If you get a chance, it's worth the trip. And, yeah, plenty of stuff going on. I did want to mention, we had a bid letting last Tuesday through the DOT. Well, we didn't hold it locally, it was for the Dry Branch Bridge on Highway 99. It's for that preliminary grading that's kind of off alignment in the bridge replacement or the bridge construction itself. It came in at about 1.4 million. When we had updated our engineering estimate to better reflect what I call current day prices as far as dirt work and as far as bridge work, because everything's sky high, as we know. It hit our estimate as close as you could ever dream of hitting an estimate, I believe. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it was very close. So we're right in line with, we did have 4 bidders also, 4. And I want to say our bidder was 1.4 and the high bidder went all the way up to just shy of 2 million.
Wow.
So competition's a good thing. But I think the second bidder was up in the 1.6s or something like that. So when we get all that paperwork from the DOT, obviously we'll get signatures and run it through the board and all that sort of stuff. But, and that one's all got, that one I believe is probably gonna be our last swap project. Actually, I think the bridge money is swap money and then there's FM money in it also. So that's good to have bid. I have not talked to the contractor that was the primary that bid on it, so I don't know when construction. I'm assuming the grading will be going late summer and the bridge either winter time or next spring. But I haven't talked to anybody to verify all of that. So good to have that out there.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Natalie, how's the reporter's office doing?
Good morning. Things are going well in the recorder's office, just business as usual.
Okay, thank you. Angie, how's the safety department?
Good morning. Keeping busy, but really nothing new to report, so.
Nothing to report. Okay, thank you. Chris Lee, I see you sticking your head in there. How's the conservation?
Good, just gearing up for our biggest weekend of the year. Memorial Day weekend's always the big one for us. We're planning on getting the beach ropes out this week so people can swim over the weekend if they want to. Looks like it's supposed to be kind of warm this weekend. And then we're gonna try to get boat docks out. We're kind of dragging our feet a little bit. The river's high 13s and 14-ish. So that doesn't give us a lot of wiggle room if the river decides to come up, because as we know, it can come up real fast. That 14 to 15 foot is our action stage on 2 of our ramps along the Mississippi. And if our dock is out and it gets above that, there's no way we can get it because where it mounts to the mounting hardware goes under the water and we can't get it. And then it lifts the dock up and it puts pressure on that and we can't get it loose. And so if we can, we'll try to get docks out this weekend. We know there's gonna be a lot of people wanting to use those, but you know, it's kind of one of those, it's gonna happen, you know, what kind of rain we're gonna get and stuff. And so we'll see if what this rain does here this next couple of days. But so yeah, just looking forward to a big busy weekend. And then the following weekend, June 4th, is our youth jamboree, which would be a huge weekend up there in Big Hollow as well, with all things outdoors, 1,000 kids running around the park. So a couple big weekends coming right up.
That's good.
Yeah. Forward to it.
Thanks, Chris. Krista Miller, Public Health.
Good morning. We continue to be busy. We had the Board of Health meeting last week. One of the things that they talked about was the baby formula shortage. Definitely wanted to reiterate that if anyone is having trouble getting baby formula, that they really talk to the healthcare provider. Not recommending that people are making homemade formula or using cow's milk or goat's milk. Again, you know, one of the things they could do is if they have a particular brand that they're usually using, an alternative brand as far as like the store brand versus the name brand is definitely an option, but definitely encourage people to call their healthcare provider before making any changes to their baby formula. Also talked about the commercial septic agreement in the past, inspecting the pumper trucks that move human waste was inspected outside of the county, so we are bringing that back to our county, and that will be done through Russ. They'll do the pumper truck inspections for us, and so that agreement was signed at the Board of Health meeting. They also signed the agreement for Russ to do their environmental health services, and I will get with Terry and we'll get that agreement on the agenda for the board to review and sign as well. And then the other thing, last week or 2 weeks ago, that 28E agreement with environmental health with the DNR was signed by the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Health signed it last week at their board meeting. They did have Hans Trausel, who's on the IAAP Restoration Board, come talk about the plume. And he had some information, I think Jim has some information on that as well, of where he's seeing improvements on that plume. So they meet quarterly and continue to monitor that plume as well.
Thanks, Krista. You can pass that back to Sarah for one for Terry. Gotta make sure you get one, Terry. Did I miss anybody? Seeing that, we shall move on to correspondence. Neither of you gentlemen have any correspondence?
Did not.
I did not either. Move on to discussion and vote. We have a public hearing for the American Zoning Ordinance number 34 to change the official zoning map.
Motion to open a public hearing.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yep.
Jim Carrey?
Yes. This is an amendment, you wanna take hands of this here?
Yeah, just to give a quick background here. This is the item we addressed in a work session a couple weeks back. It's a rezoning request for about 12 acres of property on the west side of Sullivan Slough Road, which there was a zoning commission meeting and public hearing the week prior to that. This involves existing property which had initially been a legal non-conforming use in the R1 single-family residential district, specifically the Woodlands Treatment Center operated by Young House Family Services, which ceased operations in 2014 due to DHS restructuring of the residential treatment facilities, and it's been vacant ever since. And because of the way that the zoning ordinance treats non-conforming uses, anytime one of those ceases operations for more than a year, either the property has to revert back to something that complies with the zoning district, or it would need to be rezoned in order to be reused for that same activity that was not allowed in the R1 district. So that was the initial proposal, was to rezone to C1 commercial, to reopen that facility for a residential treatment center, which again is based on more restructuring at the state level, and there's demand in around the state, but in this region in particular, based on the existing facilities that are available not being able to meet that demand. And so the proposal does not involve any new development on the property, it's just the use of existing buildings. The south building is the actual residential facility, but there's also an office on the north property as well that would be used by Young House. And so at the public hearing with the zoning commission, there were a number of neighboring property owners present, and they presented some concerns about security and safety with regards to potential runaways from that facility, and had some experience to reference based on when that facility was open before, that there had been kids that had trespassed on their property, had been issues there. And so there was a lengthy discussion there with a representative of Young House who is in attendance here today. This is Eric Schilling, the director of Young House. And it was a nice opportunity to go over any of their concerns that they had before. I think a big part of that discussion was just the fact that when it was previously operational, there was likely a lot of apathy with regards to that program as it was being de-emphasized at the state level, and so maybe in those last few years that they were operational, there were some issues there that could have been avoided, but obviously it's a very different dynamic now, and in addition to technology improvements with regards to security measures on the property, which is important because, as was noted, because it's not a detention center, it's not classified as such, it can't be fully locked. Given the nature of the children from the foster care and juvenile court systems that would be housed at that facility. There was also a concern that came up among neighboring property owners that rezoning to C1 would potentially open the door to, if that property were to cease operations again, if they were to sell it, what could potentially go in there. And of course, the commercial district does include a variety of uses that would be allowed by right without any further feedback from the commission or from the supervisors. So ultimately, the compromise was reached where the alternative was presented for a conditional rezoning where instead of just allowing any use that's otherwise allowable in C1, it's rezoned to C1, but it specifically identifies a couple of categories of use that this building, this property falls into that would address, and that's as defined by the ordinance. Those would be the terms social service provider and nursing home or similar care facility, which is the one that comprises anything that's a social service provider where there are overnight residential accommodations on site. And so that was the recommendation from the commission. We had reworded the language of that slightly just to make it fit with those existing categories in the ordinance, since what they had recommended was initially very specific to this particular youth treatment center. So that was, we had discussed at the work session there, that recommendation of doing the conditional rezoning, which is something that as far as we know, the county has not approved previously, but it is something that is allowed by our ordinance, and we know of some other nearby counties that have utilized that option before. And so the way it would work is that the applicant would need to agree to the conditions associated with that, and then both the applicant and the supervisors would sign on to an agreement, which by state code has to be signed before the close of the final public hearing on the matter. And so we have 3 readings for that, but could potentially waive the 3rd. This would be the first for that. So if you have any questions for me or the director, you can let us know.
Excuse me, no, I don't have any questions. Like I said, I'm just glad that you guys came to an agreement with the landowners around there, because there is a need for this.
Right.
And, like I said before, I had a friend that worked there previously when it was open, and how he talked about how he really helped the kids out. Well, he's deceased now, no longer there, but he would be glad to see it back open. Does anybody else have any comments? We'll give you 2 minutes if anybody's on the line here listening or anything. We'll give you 2 minutes. You can call 319-753-8203, extension 4. That's 319-753-8203, extension 4, or email board@dmcounty.com. That's board@dmcounty.com. We'll give you 2 minutes to do that. Anybody else in here got anything to say about it?
What's the timeline? What's the hope on being able to open that?
So we would like to be operational by 15 August, so prior to school starting, because the kids attend school on the facility. So we just want to try to align that with the school year.
And will that be 15 kids or up to 15 kids, or is?
Right now, it would be a maximum of 20, but we're looking to request 16. We have to maintain a 1-to-4 ratio. So with current workforce participation, it can be a challenge to start getting more workforce the larger number of kids you increase. And so this is part of the steps that we need for Department of Inspection Appeals to issue the license. Once the license would be issued, then we go back to the contractual agreements with DHS juvenile court. And then ultimately, they would decide what the number of clients would be.
Is that Medicaid funded?
There's portions of it that can be, otherwise it's through the state in terms of DHS.
Does the Medicaid funding have a size on the max, or effect on the maximum size of that facility?
No.
It doesn't, the 16-bed rule isn't in effect?
No, in terms of the number of clients that we could have?
Well, in a residential care facility, if you have more than 15, I believe, Medicaid won't fund it.
We've not ran into that issue so far. So our current facility at Christamore is actually is capable of 19 beds, but we're contracted for 16, 13 on what's called a qualified residential treatment program and 3 on shelter, but all within the same facility.
That's definitely the rule for adults. I don't know what the
I don't know
children's
what it
rule
is
is.
for children.
Yeah, 15 for adults.
So that's our current licensure of that facility, Mount Pleasant.
Just curious, but I didn't know what it was for juveniles.
Okay, gentlemen, the 2 minutes is up. Does anybody else have anything to say?
I guess all I'd say is that our motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Okay, we have a resolution, 20.
We have to approve this.
Yeah, we
First
have to
reading.
approve this, don't we?
I like the way it was arrived at with the zoning commission discussion of the zoning
Bless you.
options. And this was the one that delayed the most concern, so I would make a motion to approve the first reading of the amendment to the zoning ordinance.
I'll second it. Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Now we can move on. Resolution 2022-37, final plat for the Able Hilltop Subdivision. Again, Jared, that would be you.
Yep, it's a pretty simple one. It's right about an acre of land being split off of a pretty large farm property that surrounds it. This is on 170th Avenue, just southwest of Big Hollow, and just south of the J&M Displays property. So it contains an existing house, which is planned to be split off from the surrounding farm ground and sold. So the plat does show that there is a septic easement for a drain that is present on the property that will be sold, or the rest of the property, so it does straddle the line there, but it is included on the plat for future reference. Also, there's an ag building just behind this parcel that will remain on the larger farm lot. And an access easement has been provided for the owner to retain access to that in the future using the driveway on the residential property. That doesn't mean that it would be possible to obtain a direct access in the future. There is a lot of frontage there along 170th for that property, even when this piece is split off. But at least for the time being, that access has been provided through an easement on the 1 acre lot. So in terms of the review, only notable comment was that from Health Department, they need to have a time of transfer inspection of the septic system, which, as I understand it, is already either completed or underway at this time as they prepare to sell. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward, and recommend approval of Able Hilltop Subdivision.
I move to approve final plat for Able Hilltop Subdivision. Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes.
The rare instances where we have an issue with the initial name they requested, because that same family the Able family has done a number of minor subdivisions in the past decade, and so they had to go through a couple of options before one that hadn't already been taken. Able Subdivision, Able Acres, Able Hilltop.
Just sign the rest of these after the meeting for you.
Okay, thanks.
Moving on, we have personnel actions. We have 4 of them for the correctional center. We'll do all 4 of them at once. First one is for Matthew Hirschman. It's a resignation. Didn't give an effective date here, but
5/28.
yeah, here it is, right here. Effective date, May 28, 2022. Next one is for Kendra Whalen, and it's a 12-month step increase from, she's a kitchen assistant cook, from $10.25 an hour to $11.27 an hour. The third one is for Brittany Whalen, Correctional Center, new hire, part-time. New rate, $10.61 an hour, effective May 25th, 2022. Next one is for Bill Elliott, unpaid time off, May the 19th, 20, 21, 22, and May the 26th, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and June 4th and 5th.
I move to approve all 4 correctional center personnel actions.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Okay, we have one for conservation. Is that Avery Jacobs?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. Resignation, effective 4/29/22. So he's been gone for a while.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah. Okay, now we have the reports for the clerk's report for fees collected in the jail stats for April of 2022. These reports will be on file in the auditor's office for your viewing at your own discretion. So. And we have the minutes for the regular meeting on May the 17th, 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Is there any other business, gentlemen?
I have
Future agenda items?
the 2080 agreement with Community Action. Are we gonna try to get that wrapped up before next week or by next week?
Would we need a work session?
Yeah, we need a work session on that, too.
Probably. I mean, that's up to you guys really, but I mean, we don't have to have everything, but the 2080 agreement is, that we need to get locked up. So however you guys wanna proceed with that.
We pretty much discussed it.
We know.
Don't know, work session would
Put it on the
accomplish much
agenda.
more if we put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for next week.
Committee reports.
I had community action, we had an executive review, and we talked about the 2080 agreement a little bit. Had a youth board meeting, Mississippi Valley, we issued some checks for child care equipment, et cetera, and I had a Bridges Out of Poverty meeting, and we're just working on some fundraising ideas, that's all I have.
I had nothing.
Krista, thanks for giving my report for my meeting. That was really good.
Well, she's gonna give yours, she needs to do mine, even odds.
So I did have public health, and that, Krista, give that report. Okay, public input. Anybody from public have any input? Not seeing anybody stand up here. Yes.
My name's Tracy Belbert, and I had a couple of issues that I wanted to talk to you guys about, if you don't mind. Actually, the one's not really an issue. I wanted to say thank you to Brian Carter and Secondary Roads because they're out working on Upper Flint. Progress is going very well. I mean, the guys are busting butt, they really are. But that is one thing that I wanted to bring up about the holiday weekend coming up. It is a very busy holiday weekend of partying and people out having fun, which is great. But even just this last weekend, even though they had barricades up and cones and stuff, we still had people flying through. Somebody was moving furniture and everything, and a big oak pedestal table was dumped in front of my house for me to clean up, along with some type of a pane of glass, which I went out and picked up. I didn't pick up the oak table, but I did the glass. My concern is, with it being a holiday weekend, I don't know, Kevin, if there's anything else that can be done about better barricading. Because I literally had two, I'm gonna say kids, come through with like little speedy cars that came down and around into my drive, down in towards my pasture fence to come back up to get around the barricades. And with all due respect, if people are out drinking like they probably will be this weekend, I'm concerned about what might happen. So if we can maybe try and work on barricades more on either end, I don't know what's possible.
There's not much that can be done if we're gonna keep you in and out. We can't close the road because we gotta keep landowners in and out. I mean, it's got
I'm willing
closure
to walk
signs.
for the weekend.
Well, I would tell you that you can call law enforcement, but if you want us to close it solid, we can close it solid. But are you the only one right now with their progress who's coming in and out, or is there somebody else also?
I haven't been up to the top of the hill. I don't know if they're up to Scott and Nina's drive yet.
They were close.
Were
I don't
they?
know if they're there, but I mean, unfortunately, people not reading signs is nothing new and ignoring them. So I would encourage you to call, if you know of anybody coming in, to call. I mean, it's not a new thing. We will look at the signs, but I can't make you guarantees people aren't gonna drive around anything we do.
Yeah, and I understand. It's just by the time I call law enforcement, they're gonna be well gone.
Are they able to move through there completely now, or?
No, they can't go
No,
all the
they-
way through.
I think that should be a big help, because up until fairly recently, they could, and people were just kind of going around the barricades, and we had complaints about that. So hopefully that will discourage some of that activity, but the best thing is if you get a vehicle description, get a plate, then give us a call, we'll track them down. A lot of times it's the same person, but we'll have enhanced presence out there. And I don't know if we could talk to the contractor and maybe ask them just to tighten up the barricades a little bit to discourage it more, but.
I'll have Devin take a look. I mean, if there's something we think we can do, I mean, we're gonna keep your access, because also if there's emergency response needed at your house for some reason, we want them to be able to get there also. It's just,
Sure.
it's an obligation we try to have, other than when we pave, obviously. But I'll have Devin take a look at it, and maybe we can leave a piece of equipment across to discourage, that would be in the closure area, but across to try to discourage or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what we can do, but we can take a look.
Okay, I appreciate it, thank
Yep.
you. The other issue I wanted to bring up is, and I've talked to Tom about this a few times, but abandoned houses out in our area. There's one at the top of the hill, so the intersection of Irish Ridge and Upper Flint. It's actually address 12036 Irish Ridge Road. It used to belong to Mr. and Mrs. Birch, but then I know she was in a care facility, and I don't know if she's passed away or not. It might be in the estate now, but it's definitely been emptied by scavengers, no windows. The buzzards are living in the upper story of it. But I found some kids that were going over there playing the other day, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And I know that comes down to parents taking care of their children. But that's one house just at our road. And then you come down the hill, back up as if you're going up towards Scott and Nina's house. And DeWalds own a small house that used to belong to Sizers at the top of the hill. And that is basically abandoned, windows are broken out, it's falling in. The owners haven't been there in probably a year or two, I would say. But it's another abandoned house. And then we have another problem house over towards the highway. There's people that actually live there, but it's not cared for. It's turning into a dump zone. That's address 11757 Upper Flint. It's a little white house next to the old stone schoolhouse. It's just an ongoing problem where throughout the entire winter, there's been a huge pile of a mattress and a chair and garbage bags and cars that don't move.
Is that the one that had the fire cleaned up the first time that you and I talked?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I can say is we have some limitations on people's right, I should say, to have trash in their yard. Now, when it meets the code for what the DNR code of collecting trash or dump pile or illegal burning, what we'll do, and we did at that exact residence, is we went out and we delivered notice. We struggled with making contact with anybody, but we delivered a notice that they can't keep piles of debris, they can't keep illegal burning, and that's what was going on at that residence.
Yeah.
So we delivered that notice, we made contact, and they were made aware. We actually had the environmentalist with DNR come down. We went through it, and he actually helped us out, and we created a template for our office so we can visit those sites within the county that have those properties that meet that illegal dump sites. Because there's some belief that you can dump whatever you want to on your own property, but you really can't. You can't have dump piles on your property. Dirty yards, and that's kind of where that place has transitioned. Now it does appear, and I haven't been by there in a week or two, but it does appear that it's starting to build up again, and it's turning into what is probably a dump site again.
Yeah, because that pile by the front door, it's been there all winter.
Yeah.
It hasn't moved.
So the pile, unfortunately, was, I think it was a couch, and then there was stuff that started to heap on top of it. And can somebody have a couch at their front door? Probably. When it starts turning into a pile of actual trash, no. So it's probably something we need to revisit again and go have a talk about.
I appreciate it,
Yeah.
especially with you being right there. I mean, hopefully it's easy access that
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
periodically pop in.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank
Yeah.
But what about these abandoned houses?
So, abandoned houses, I don't wanna speak out of turn, but I mean, the house that's on Irish Ridge, the Birch House, so we've had a lot of issues with trespassing there. That is in the state, it's held by multiple owners. One of them lives in the area, the others live out of the area. But they have no intention at this point, as far as I know, of doing anything with it. But we respond to complaints all the time of trespassing and dump sites. And I can't say that they have any intent of doing anything with it, but if there's trespassing going on there, then we respond to it. But as far as forcing them to maintain it, that's probably be coming out of our hands and outside of our ability to do that, unless I'm missing something.
No, Moines County does not have countywide zoning. There's a 2-mile zone around Burlington.
Yeah.
Jared could probably address that.
Yeah.
And it's limited zoning, but I don't think there's any.
Not for nuisances or
nuisance,
abandonment like that. And with the dumping thing, it's kind of a gray area. If we're able to ascertain that it's actually being used as a commercial enterprise where people are paying to come in and dump stuff like a junkyard or something, that's one thing. But again, if there's kind of a gray area when you come to just, there's just piles of stuff there, how did it get there? So that's because our zoning ordinance is primarily geared towards the general use of the property, residential, commercial, industrial, setbacks, things like that. So it's again, without having a nuisance ordinance specific to that, that's not really something that falls under the purview of the zoning ordinance.
But when we're looking at a health and safety issue, like, I mean, the 2 abandoned houses that I'm talking about, I mean, it's truly health and safety. Is there something that the county could look at similar to the city when it comes to houses that are at risk, of harming someone?
We've had this come up in the past in some other areas, and there there was, the board and general public had no interest in that. I've been involved in a couple of them, and there's, beyond the right of way, there's been no action and no option for action on private property. But I can just only speak to the past.
Shane, you worked with those.
Yeah, and the deal is a lot of people move out to the country so that they can, so they. Yeah, people move out to the country so that they can have a little bit more freedom and make their own choices. And, yeah, it's kind of, where do you draw the line of, you know what I'm saying, of crossing over into people's rights when they move out to the country for those reasons? I mean, we've never been able to do anything with it. Now, in town, yeah, but even with, oh, I won't give the address, but there's a spot where it's still in town, looks like it's in town, but that's where the divide is. I mean, there's been people complaining about that stuff, and even then, there's only so far that we can go with it because they're considered county. If they wanna have something out in their front yard, we can't make them clean it up. The only thing we can do is say, well, if there's critters, I think the closest thing we had was like water, where, you know, they had rubber tires and stuff like that, and water, they stored a mosquito problem, you know, but it's limited. As far as I know, it's really, really, really hard. And I don't know what anybody else has to say about that, but I don't know how you can do that.
Now, in the city of Burlington, part of the problem with the zoning is it's went way too far the other way. And so most people that have moved out of the city of Burlington, I will tell you, I would never live in Burlington. Because they tell you everything, I mean, everything, and that's why people move out to the county. So if you start setting them up, then that sets up the opportunity for things to get a little bit extreme.
And I appreciate everything that you guys are saying. I've lived in the country my entire life, and I get it. I just think when you have houses that are falling in, that's a health and safety issue, and especially when there's kids around that, I get that they shouldn't be there. I understand that, but the plain simple fact is that it happens.
I guess the only thing that would fall on it is you would hope the liability involved in owning one of those places would prompt someone to make changes. But apparently obviously that doesn't always work, because those owners that you're strict, they're liable if some children wander on there and the house falls in on them.
It's probably gonna take somebody getting hurt.
But that's the incentive they have now.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anybody else have any public comment? Seeing nobody. Right, with an eye, we're out of here.
Aye.
We have a work session coming up with the Seal Region. We're gonna take about a 5-minute break.
That and see if there's anything we can do, keeping your access and trying to minimize anything else. I know we can't stop everybody from everything, but we'll see what's in.
Got an update from our maintenance director, Rodney Gleason, and then we're gonna move on. I talked to Ryan, and she said it's okay for about 10 minutes, so. So if you ladies don't get mad at me, she said it's okay.
But if you wanna get mad at him.
So, are we on?
Yep.
We're here with a work session with Rodney Gleason, maintenance director. He wants to give us a little update, so, okay, Rodney.
Good morning. As you know, like all the lease agreements that we have with the Cottonwood Complex, we had
Speak up a little bit.
the lease agreements we have with the Cottonwood Complex are all due in July. So we've taken care of some of those, and one we haven't yet was a care facility. So I kind of mentioned you guys.
And by care facility, you mean River Cross?
River Cross, yeah. So I mentioned you guys maybe bringing them in so they can give, Hope Haven can give us an update kind of on the programs, the Crisis Center program and the River Cross program, and kind of see how that's going and get the chance to meet the new director, Cheryl Plank is here, and April Van Ham. So I'll kind of turn it over to them to kind of give you guys a little update on where those programs are at.
So I've met Tom a few times, and I used to work in Ottumwa at Tenco years ago and was a part of the Sill region then, so I'm back in Burlington, happy to be here. Things are going really well, but I knew Bob Bartles for a long, long time, and I'm happy to have taken the position. It's hard to follow in his footsteps, but I'll do the best I can. And so, yeah, he had asked if we'd come and talk about River Cross and our plans for moving forward. We're very much planning to continue providing the services there. The Sill region, we're just updating our contracts with the crisis facility and everything with them. So April can talk more specific about the program if you want to know more about those
Which
programs.
program?
The River Cross and our crisis programs.
Oh,
That's what the programs we're utilizing this space.
Okay. But they're separate. The River Cross is in the old RCF, and the Crisis Center is in the, what was it before?
Transitional
permanent
Okay,
housing,
yeah.
transitional
Yeah.
housing now. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm still learning, 4 months
But-
in, so.
Sue and I have been here a lot longer than you.
So do you have any questions about the programs? What can
I guess.
What can I tell you?
Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah.
Or I thought you said, maybe it was you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, just give us a little update on.
Okay, so our crisis stabilization program has been operating since July of 2014. We work exclusively with people who are experiencing a mental health crisis in that program. It's a 5-day crisis stay and then extended stay up to a maximum of 6 weeks for that transition component while we help people access different resources in the community and have, you know, the greatest possibility for success when they discharge from the program. COVID, I think, threw a few wrenches at us. Our attendance or use of the program has decreased through COVID. I think some of that is accessibility. So we're looking at ways to enter the program in maybe different ways instead of having to go through the emergency department, which has been our traditional access point to the program. I think COVID had a lot of people not wanting to go unnecessarily to the emergency room, so that maybe decreased some of our use. Also looking at different ways we can market the program and just have, you know, maximize the opportunity for people to get the services. Yes.
I understand the crisis, that's 5 beds,
5 beds, yep, adults only.
and it's that voluntary.
It is all voluntary, yes, yep. So then through the courtyard to the care facility, our River Cross program has been up since September of 20, opening a new program in the midst of a global pandemic. I don't recommend, but we have forged ahead, and we have 5 people in that program right now. Part of course, our maximum would be 15. Part of our reason for the small census is because of staffing shortages. We just don't have the staff to be able to support 15 people who are having those very complex co-occurring disabilities and the level of need there. We have accepted a 6th person, so we'll be up to 6 here shortly, but working with ADS as our substance use counseling and just starting with
LSI for our mental health, Lutheran Services of Iowa, for our mental health services in that program.
What is the staffing ratio for that?
So right now, we have about 1.5 staff on duty at a time for the 5 people. We have one person for sure around the clock, and then we have certain hours of the day, there's a second staff on duty. If we would get up to 15, I think we'd be more at like a 2.5 to maybe even 3 during some parts of the day.
And that's River Cross.
That's River Cross.
River Cross.
Yes, yes.
How long does that program last? I mean, if I get admitted, is it a week, a month, 6 weeks?
Right, so we don't have a hard stop date or anything like that. You know, if you were to come into River Cross, we're setting a service plan, we're reaching goals, we're, you know, just working with each individual on what their timeline needs to look like and what their recovery process is gonna be. There isn't a limit that it's, you know, 6 months or a year or anything, but people do know this is not a forever stay. This has to be a place where you come to recover and then move on into a hopefully successful placement in the community.
So they have Medicaid funding for both River Cross and for the 5-bed crisis home.
Yep.
The 5-bed crisis home, you can only have 5 days of crisis funding through Medicaid, and then the region also helps, and, yeah. But the RCF, it's still RCF licensure for the other, the River Cross, and so they follow the RCF rules, but they have, it's better because it's a dual program.
Yep.
And offers more than what a typical RCF would offer. But the nice thing is it's a 15-bed RCF, so it meets the Medicaid guidelines, so.
So at the dual program, that is Medicaid and not public, or Department of Public Health.
Right.
And Medicaid, you said covers that 100% for 5 days?
At the River Cross,
Right.
it's 100% for the duration of their stay. Yeah, it's the crisis program where it's only 5 days that Medicaid pays for.
Okay.
Is River Cross all voluntary also?
It is, we don't accept court orders there.
So would that ever be in the future if the staffing was brought up? I mean, some ability to work through the courts and have that as like an alternate sentencing, or just a complete treatment? Work with drug court and try to put people in placement as opposed to in jail.
Right, so the preference would always be that maybe a court order is a person's court ordered to outpatient mental health and to follow the recommendation of their psychiatrist. But to have somebody court ordered to Hope Haven River Cross, that ties our hands a little bit in our ability to keep everybody safe when, you know, when situations escalate and maybe behaviors get out of hand or people are using, then we struggle to be able to discharge in a safe way and keep the rest of the residents safe when we have that court order in place. It just complicates things a little bit, but.
And it's not a locked unit like MHI was for their dual programs,
Correct.
so.
Right, yeah.
So you said that this is, people can enter this on their own, they're not forced to do this. If somebody went in and saying, hey, I need a 5-day, and you took them in, they can leave after 2 days?
At the crisis program, yep, yep.
Quick question about, on the crisis center. How many people do you have in there currently?
I don't know that answer. Dina Garrison is our supervisor of the program. She'll be coming in a few minutes and
Okay.
she could tell you.
I think they kept that pretty full for a while, didn't they?
We really did, prior to
First, yeah.
COVID. Honestly, prior to COVID, we were at 4 or 5 almost all the time. And we just need to figure out maybe how to remarket, make sure people know we're still there. I think when COVID happened, a lot of things shut down, and so maybe we just need to remind the public that we're still here, we're still, you know, offering these services.
Any other questions or anything?
I didn't have nothing else. I just wanted to kind of bring them in and kind of give you guys some updates, give a chance to any questions you may have.
At the end of our at the end of our CIT meeting that's following, we're gonna have providers talking about the services too, so there'll be a little more information shared with you at that.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you, nice to be here.
So if there's nothing else, we shall close this and get on with our next work session with seal region.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ron.
Jeff, I was kind of hoping it's in the TAC team. They get this crowd in here.
They're tied up with a search warrant right now.
I hope we can expect their presence as soon as they get that taken care of.
How are you? Anywhere you want.
Well, I can put people in order.
Those seats are all taken.
I'm not.
That's all.
That'd be awesome.
They can do a PowerPoint on the screen.
You did? I could probably just go.
Sorry.
So we got like 5 numbers.
I do.
No, I'm saying it's like church, you never seen the press. Good show.
Yes, for being so there.
You're sitting here.
It's part of our.
Sorry.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Oh, you're talking about. You have
They realize. Perfect. Okay. Perfect, thank you.
She came.
Is this the same thing? Okay.
Letters.
I'll take one. If you have extra.
I have plenty.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Oh, I'll take it. I just gave mine away. Thanks.
Dad, do you think my wife's busy out there when she's working?
No, she keeps me busy.
Don't let her do that.
I've
Can I have a talk with her?
Would you please? Would you please?
Yes, I will.
All right.
Apparently I took this all out of my purse and put it on my nightstand.
3 days a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Oh, I misunderstood. Sorry about that.
But it is.
I can manage that. I have to do it sometimes.
I do a lot of work. It's pretty easy when they pay you to go.
That is true, that is fair. Whereas, I bet you're not having to pull out of bed at 7 a.m. to get there before the crack of dawn.
No.
My goal last year was, oh, I'm gonna go to physical therapy and I'm gonna get back before Michelle gets on for the day. Means leaving the house at like 7 a.m. I don't know if I do it 3 times. Well, I guess I have to do it 3 times.
I'm eyeing that front row now. Okay.
Yeah, no doubt.
Come on, Theodore, sit down.
Give it up.
Nobody.
Oh, you're good, you're good. I don't know. I just get to kick it.
I'll take it.
It's a good day.
He likes to slap in the back of the head.
It's
Can arrange that.
With an object.
Make sure you knock him out.
Did you send your letters?
Just go back.
What's that? Did you send your letters?
Sheet go back.
To the grand? No, I haven't.
I did that the other day.
I don't know if I needed to.
Everybody get a chance to, you can sign it, sign it. Should we send it?
You'll wonder.
Oh, I know, I need it.
That's what they call it. You wouldn't know about that. You got yours the honest way. Just what do you do? Yeah, it wasn't pretty, Jim.
Ryan, bring donuts for everybody?
There's cookies. Did I answer that too fast?
Yeah, you got me
Jim, we're avoiding stereotypes. Cookies, not donuts.
Cookies, not donuts, huh? Well, I'm sure Jesse and Chad can have a donut.
Not while I'm working.
Not while you're working.
I'll eat a lot of them when I'm off, but no, I don't want the stigma to follow me around all day. Yes. Well, we had coffee with the cop yesterday, and I provided donuts. I didn't have one. I had plenty when I got back.
Out of the public eye.
That's right. That's all right.
That's that technology set up whenever you guys want us to fire up.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, we're here, with the CIT and work agenda. So, I don't know if you got a sign-in sheet everybody knows, so we won't go around and introduce ourselves, but if you do speak, could you introduce yourself so we know who's talking to this report. So we're gonna turn this over to
Ryan and I.
you and Ryan.
And since Ryan's the beginning portion, we'll have her go ahead and start.
All right. Well, welcome everybody, and we very much appreciate you all being here. My leg of the show is just about identifying what services we currently have available. Tom, you already have a question?
I do. Would you introduce yourself for the record?
Yes, I will. Ryan Wood. I am the CEO of Southeast Iowa Link Mental Health and Disability Services Region.
That won't be my last question. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, there, we're to her slide.
All right. So where we're going to start out is just identifying the services that we have within the Seal region. So thought that that would be helpful. Those are reference points, those are referral points, those are access points for all of our constituents that live here in the Seal region. So this is a list of the services that we currently have provided, and we'll get into a little bit deeper detail in each one. 24-hour crisis line is where we start. Your Life Iowa is the contracted 24-hour crisis line. A crisis line, it has connection back to the local area. It's actually manned up in Iowa City by Foundation 2 and Community Crisis Services. But then it connects back down to local providers to assist in anybody that calls in and identifies themselves in mental health crisis. They do an interview and a brief screening, and then make adjustments and referrals to appropriate places for folks that call in. Here's the information for Your Life Iowa. The Seal region has purchased lots of swag and send it out. So if you don't have any of that swag and are interested in that has the identification of the phone number, then call, text, and chat. We are happy to get that out to you.
You guys are giving people swag?
We will give you swag.
Are you giving away cool too?
We have your Life Iowa stress ball brains.
Stress ball what?
Brains?
Squeezy brains.
Squeezing brains.
Yes.
I was gonna say it'd be the first one you ever had.
You're my best buddy.
I'll put you on the spot, brother.
I agree with you. Thanks, Jimmy. Great chef.
Glad we're keeping it classy here today. So you will note down here, coming soon, 988. Quick question, who has heard about 988 in this room? Yay. So 988 is the equivalent to 911, but it is for behavioral health issues. There is a lot of IT infrastructure and architecture that has to be built into that system in order to make it work. Currently, Your Life Iowa has the capability of doing transfers to 911 systems. 988 will, as we understand it, will have that capability to have connectedness back between the 911 and 988 system without anybody having to hang up and call a different line. Iowa is going to do a slow rollout on that. That's going to happen in July, mid-July. 988 is a nationwide effort that SAMHSA is putting out there. There are federal dollars that are attached to that venture. Each state is doing it a little bit differently, but we're optimistic for 988 to come in and hopeful that that will deflect some of those calls that are currently going into the 911 system, be able to get them directed to professionals that know how to manage, to screen for, and make referral recommendations for folks that are struggling with behavioral health crisis. Are there any questions about that? That's a big, broad, and I pretend not to be an expert in that, so I just know enough to be dangerous. Crisis Stabilization Residential. Within the Seal region, we have two programs. Hope Haven runs the one here locally in Burlington. It's a 5-bed unit. It is a residential-based unit. It serves adults only in the Burlington area. Our second program within the Seal region is First Resources. It is located in Fairfield. It also is a 5-bed unit, and we have representation that will address exactly what they do. The Seal region also has Crisis Stabilization Residential with Agency Shelter located in Agency, Iowa, which is outside of the Southeast Iowa Link region, but they will also be serving children from across the Seal region, all 8 of our counties. Crisis assessment. This is a service for children as well as adults. We have several community mental health providers that do typical outpatient services. They have urgent care appointments available to do whatever is needed under the urgent care umbrella, which would also include crisis assessment. But the Seal region also has Optum on contract with therapist availability 24/7, 365. Again, we have representative here that will go into the dirty details of that work. But crisis assessment is for the purpose of identifying what a person needs and then getting them linked into that service that will hopefully sustain them in the community and prevent them from going into a jail or an inpatient hospitalization situation. Access centers is next up. What access centers are, the title is just a little bit deceiving. It's not an inpatient unit. It's not someplace that a person can be court committed to. If a person is on an outpatient committal, a person can happily go to the access center. But access centers are for adults only. There's a number of different services that are provided underneath the umbrella of an access center. We have on contract with Southern Iowa Mental Health Center that's located in Ottumwa to be our designated access center. We have most of the services already that comprise an access center. The only thing that we don't have in our geography as a region is the subacute facility. So in the access center, there is crisis assessment, crisis stabilization, residential, and subacute. In addition to that, those are the 3 mandated services within an access center. In addition to that is the subacute and 23-hour observation and holding. So 23-hour observation and holding is just as the name would indicate. It's less than 24-hour period of time. It has medical staff, nursing staff. They attend to substance issues as well as mental health crisis issues or brain health issues, as we like to say. And the person is there, has an assessment, provided the medical become med stable, if at all possible, and then refer on to whatever service is in need that comes out of the information from that assessment. Subacute can be used as a crisis service, but subacute in structure looks a lot like a nursing facility. It has a nurse on staff, it has a mental health professional, it has a medical professional that is the oversight of the entire program. In addition to it being as a crisis service, it can also be a step down for a person that's coming out of an inpatient acute hospital situation. In the CO region, it is generally used in that way. We identify that a lot of times people get stuck in inpatient, and if we had representation from the hospital, which we might, I'm not for sure if we do or not. Yes, thank you. We have people that get hung up in inpatient situations. They're ready to discharge. The problem is they don't have a place to discharge. For the CO region, we have on contract the subacute over in Ottumwa. There's a number of other subacute programs across the state of Iowa that the CO region is happy to provide funding for if the person is not a Medicaid eligible and has an other funding source. And we use that program as a step down from inpatient acute. So this is what we need to get to have the full complexity or continuum of care within the CO region. Mobile crisis response is a program that we did have for a brief amount of time, and unfortunately the provider that we had in contract out of Johnson County didn't have the capacity to continue in this program. It did a soft rollout in our top 4 tiers counties of the CO region, and unfortunately COVID hit and then everything kind of fell out for the bucket from there. So the CO region has led a request for proposal in regards to mobile response as well as a number of other crisis services, all of which we have gone through here. Unfortunately, there were no applicants for the request for proposal, so we continue with that search. We are hopeful that we will eventually have a provider that will have the capacity to provide those services for us. All of these crisis services are identified in legislation. They are the responsibility of regions to ensure access for all of the citizens within the region. So we hope that our workforce shortage will come to a halt soon in the near future, and we'll have the capacity to have all of these services available. And crisis stabilization community-based is much like mobile response, but is a longer duration of time. There is a medical provider that's the oversight of the program. It's attached to a mental health professional to do ongoing mental health therapy sessions with an individual. And then it's highly focused on professional staff that are versed in de-escalation as well as skill development, providing coping skills so that people can avoid or be deterred from having crisis in the future, and giving them some tools that they can use in order to assist themselves and not go any further into the system and find those revenues and resources that would make it available to them to avoid crises in the future. So if you bundled all of these services up, it creates what we call an access service network. There's no correct starting point for that network. So essentially, an assessment that is provided of a person, a screening and assessment determines in what location of service or level of service a person could be interjected into to meet their needs. Brain health. So one of the other things that all of the regions across the state are trying to deal with is stigma, much like the whole donut thing. So.
We've come full
Appreciate that
circle.
comment.
We've come full circle.
So, with brain health, this is a homegrown effort in the state of Iowa to address the issue of stigma and be mindful of the language that we use. We identify 1 in 5 adults suffer from or have to contend with the complexities of a brain health condition. And a lot of people do not go and seek assistance in managing those struggles that they encounter related to that condition because of the stigma that's attached to it. So we would really like to put an end to that stigma. If a person needs help, they should receive the help and not have any shame or guilt feelings about that. And we're going to watch a brief clip. This is the founder of Brain Health Now. And she herself has some familial
Hi, I'm Debbie Butler and I'm the founder of Brain Health Now. It happened to be a thought in the middle of the night, and I woke up and I thought we need to do something now because brain health is going to be around forever. And I thought, what can we do now? What are we able to do now that doesn't cost anything, that we can spread throughout the community, throughout the state, throughout the country? So I thought, words, we need to change verbiage, because what happens is when you think about mental illness, the stigma follows that. Your brain is an organ, it's just like your kidneys, it's just like your heart, and it can get sick too. Use different words, because words are powerful. Words matter. People are hurt by words, and if you use a very strong word such as psycho, crazy, mentally ill, if we can work on those words, I think that stigma is going to go away. It's going to help those who are suffering from a brain health issue, and it's going to make them more normalized in society. Brain health is not just a small scale or local problem. In fact, 1 in 5 adults will have a brain health issue in their lifetime. All that we're asking of you is to reframe the way you say mental illness by using the word brain health. I think this generation has a chance to end the stigma. Let's end the stigma now.
And we have another clip also, some of the marketing strategy for the Brain Health Now.
For some people, brain health issues can feel almost larger than life. Even small problems are magnified in ways that make it feel like there's no escape. Thoughts of suicide as a result of underlying brain health issues are more common than one might think. In Iowa, 1 person dies by suicide every 20 hours. If you or a loved one are experiencing thoughts of suicide, there is hope.
You are not alone.
Reaching out is one of the most important things you can do. Visit us online for more services and resources that may be available to you.
You're not alone.
So the regions of Iowa have Brain Health Now on contract to provide these services. They have a very cool website. If you go into that website, regardless of where you live in the state of Iowa, if you click on the county in which you live or wherever you're located at the time and you're having a crisis, it will identify local resources around you. It will also link to all of the regions' websites that will have even further detail of those resources. So it's a good tool to have in your pocket for anybody and everybody.
How active are you guys on like social media and getting these messages out?
So we have, there's different layers of this. The Your Life Iowa has a statewide effort to promote the 24-hour crisis. And then the regions have the collaborative effort to have a statewide presence that has different social media applications on Twitter. I can't go through all of those, but Twitter and Facebook and all of those sort of things. There's also the old school billboards that are in various locations. And then at the local level, we have several coalitions within the Seal region that have developed their own social media presence, identifying within their specific county those things that are available.
If there are any sites that I could access, that I could share on my social media, I'd love to have those sites to get that out there. I think people
Perfect.
don't know all that's available.
Perfect.
So you have the sites in the PowerPoint. Seal has their own webpage, and we also have social media. And we have a web person that's working on that for us, because that's not quite our area of expertise.
Yes. And Ken is your point of contact for connection to our website.
I don't like to
and
talk to
social
Ken, I need a different contact. I'm just kidding.
Fill in the love. Are there other questions before I sit down and give Sarah the stand?
Maybe one.
Okay.
And you touched on it with assessment. As I recall, there used to be a problem that if someone ends up in the crisis home, they get assessed there, but they've already been assessed previously, maybe at the emergency room or someplace. Medicaid's only gonna pay for one assessment.
Yep.
Is that still a problem?
It's an obstacle that we've overcome at the region level. So the insurance typically pays for an assessment, and just about every insurance, even private third party, will pay for an initial evaluation or a crisis assessment. The start of every single one of these crisis services is an assessment. So once you have one assessment, it gets plugged into either as a standalone or plugged into whatever that rate is, be it an hourly rate or a per diem rate, and I'm going way probably too deep into all of this. But what has been worked out with our crisis stabilization residential programs is that assessment generally happens with Optimate or the community health provider that does urgent care appointments. They make the referral in, and that crisis assessment is used for the ongoing services within those programs.
Thank you.
Yep.
So for Des Moines County, that's still Optimate that has the urgent care appointments in their contract.
Thank you, Kim, for that clarification. Yep. All right. Thank you.
Me. So I am Sarah Barrett. I am a coordinator of disability services out of Henry County for the Seal region. I am also the program director for our Transition Link program, who also then supports the crisis intervention team work that we are doing. And so I want to start with a short clip, Ernie and Joe Crisis Talks.
Before you play that, can you spell your last name for me?
BERNDT.
I'm being told that she is going to be on that bridge. Where she is? She's sitting on the rail here.
No one calls us to give us good news. They call us because something bad is happening, so they're in a crisis.
Are you okay?
We used to have a saying in law enforcement, ask, tell, make. When I ask you to do it, I'm going to tell you to do it, and I'm going to make you do it.
On average, in a police academy in this country, they spend 60 hours or more learning how to shoot a gun, and they spend 8 on mental health and communication. We need to shift that.
He is now feeling suicidal and homicidal. Your mom said that you haven't been on medication?
They found Mel, who was trying to commit suicide.
Are you hearing voices right now? What are they saying to you?
Has anyone here, while you're at a work capacity, told someone, I'm scared? As human beings, we have to be connected. I unplugged a lamp, it don't work. Are you okay?
I promise you I can help you. Your life is broken, but you're fixable.
If it takes me all day long to convince them that we're not going to hurt them, and they're going to come with us.
How you doing? You okay?
I'll take all day long.
Oh, no, this is my partner, Joe. My name's Ernie.
So Ernie and Joe are San Antonio CIT department officers. They're both retired now. So Joe Samaro has gone on to form Solution Point Plus with Jesse Trevino, who is also a San Antonio law enforcement officer. And what they do is they take the San Antonio model of the CIT training, the 40-hour training, plus a bunch of other de-escalation and crisis negotiation and a whole bunch of other very valuable crisis training tools out nationwide.
And the state of Iowa has contracted through our MHDS CEOs to have Solution Point come in and do the 40-hour CIT training, 9 of those trainings by Joe and Jesse across the state of Iowa for up to 20 participants per course. And so when they get those all set up and we know which ones are close to Iowa, then that will definitely be an opportunity for our law enforcement officers to be able to go and attend that. One of the things, though, that we believe is in the works is that the Law Enforcement Academy used to offer a 3-day crisis intervention team training. We believe that they're going to go to the 40-hour crisis intervention team training at the Law Enforcement Academy, which changes up what we do at the local level as far as CIT training and supporting our law enforcement officers, which kind of leads to the CIT relaunch in general. But CIT 101, the goal of CIT 101 is to, and do you want to jump in and take this?
You're doing a great job.
So Chad's one of our CIT training officers, so he knows this stuff. He's been to a couple CIT trainings, 40-hour trainings, and then he is one of our pretty there for the entire 40-hour trainings officers. So the goal of CIT is to increase the quality of life for folks that have brain health issues, mental health, intellectual disabilities, brain injury, addiction services, and what we want is when law enforcement is called out to a crisis, we want that outcome to be as positive as possible. We definitely don't want hands-on, we definitely don't want officer injury, we definitely don't want citizen injury. And so we want to increase those relationships with our service providers, with our hospitals, so that everybody that is got the potential to come in contact with a crisis knows everybody else that's coming in contact with that crisis, so we can have open dialogue. And then with the training, then we can change how our law enforcement responds to folks with intellectual disability, brain health, addictions, treatment needs. And the goal is to, again, teach our law enforcement officers and even our community in general strategies and techniques to de-escalate that crisis situation. So again, the outcome is safe and effective for both law enforcement, the community, and that person that is in the midst of that crisis. So we had, for the last 5-6 years,
At least 5.
a overarching region CIT committee who our primary focus was doing the 40-hour CIT. 40-hour CIT is not the entirety of crisis intervention teams. Again, the goal of crisis intervention teams is to improve the overall crisis interaction with folks in the community. So that again is kind of changing up where we're putting our focus. But we had stakeholders, we had professionals in the mental health service delivery away, addictions treatment, law enforcement, board of supervisors, and interested community providers sitting on that committee.
How many, excuse me, how many in the SEAL region officers like Chad and Jesse are there?
So we've had a bit of a stall, or a bit of a stop in CIT training. And so it's been about a year now since we've had one. And officers come and go. So I would say, what do you think? We've probably got about 20 still working within our region, 20 to 25.
Oh, more than that.
At one time I know we had 42, and I know we've lost about a half a dozen, so.
Burlington has 14.
That's right, you've increased your numbers over that, but except for Louisa and Van Buren, there are CIT trained officers in every county.
40 hours of training?
Mm-hmm, the full 40 hours.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm, you're welcome. So what our CIT training does, what the San Antonio CIT training does, what the Law Enforcement Academy does, goes over the entire gamut of brain health issues that people face, homelessness, active listening skills, cognitive disorders, aging issues, cultural issues, addiction and recovery. We go over the psychotropic medications, what they look like. You know, a lot of times the training is that when law enforcement officers are called out and somebody's not doing well, they're taught to get to that, are you prescribed medications? If you are, have you been taking them? If they haven't, you know, and oftentimes they'll ask to see the prescription bottle so they can really see, you know, what they are prescribed, because if they are gonna have to go to a hospital, that just helps with the information that's gonna go along with them to the hospital from a third party that's maybe a bit more able to give good information for that receiving emergency department to have. We talk about child and adolescent interventions, we have a hearing voices simulation, we talk about peer support, so everything that you can think about crisis and mental health related. Then another huge part of our training is the role plays. So during the day, we might train on 5 or 6 topics. We'll then have actors come in and play out scenarios so that the officers being trained have to walk through that scenario and bring it to an outcome that, is most favorable. We have personal experience speakers. We have a gentleman who is from the Des Moines area who is schizophrenic. His schizophrenia got him involved in law enforcement, so he's able to speak from that perspective of having schizophrenia, being in crisis, and interfacing with law enforcement and the jail system. He's a fabulous speaker. He's always well received, and we really feel honored to be able to offer that. We also have a gentleman, Aaron Likens, who is a nationwide speaker on autism. He is on the autism spectrum, so he gives a good overview for a couple of hours of what to expect with somebody with autism, how to engage with folks with autism, so that law enforcement officers who come onto a scene can kind of assess what behaviors they might be seeing might be autism spectrum related, so then they know how to better engage with that individual. And then the third thing that we do that we like is we bring our providers in for a lunch, and then they do a provider fair, so our law enforcement officers can get to know the providers in their communities so that, again, we're making those connections with law enforcement. So we use the tailored approach. We did the training for law enforcement, and we bring in the community providers. And what we have switched it up to doing now, because crisis intervention is a local issue, fully active in Des Moines County and in Washington County, they're doing local CIT meetings at once a month, and if you want to talk about that, you or Ted.
So the second Thursday of every month, we meet at the police department in our large training room. It started out, Audrey Minke and Ted and I kind of started getting together to identify some gaps in the services and issues that we were having, and it's grown exponentially. We have virtually, I think, every provider in our area that attends these meetings. And the big thing right now is, I don't know if anybody's heard of Eagle View. Is it Eagle View? Is that right? They are applying for a grant to provide a clinic or a site here in Burlington that will be a 24/7, I guess, assessment center with mental health professionals on staff 24/7. That when somebody's in crisis and law enforcement needs help, we can take them there to be evaluated and then the referrals made to.
I'll warn you, Jennifer, we'll put you on the spot a little later on so you can talk about that.
No goodie. And in fact, our last meeting, we met, and she was asking for letters of support to provide with the grant, and this is huge for our area if this would ever happen.
So, those are things that we need, those are things that we want, those are things that the region's trying to put into place, and, if we can partner to get those in place, that's what we want to do. So another thing that you will hear when you're talking about jail diversion and CIT and dealing with crisis is what's called the sequential intercept model. And what this is it goes through the intercept levels where people in crisis come into contact with law enforcement. And what we want to do at sequential intercept model 0 is to not have folks be interfacing with law enforcement. We want to have the services in place so that we can do the crisis lines, that we can have the mobile response, so that we can get those folks into the hands of somebody who's a mental health professional and can help get them into those deeper services versus not having those services in place, and law enforcement are frustrated and the person can't stay on the street, and so their only other recourse is to book them into jail. So again, that's what Ryan started out with, talking about what we have to get those folks diverted to another level of care, and then what we want to get in place, which is going to really help us divert to other levels of care. Intercept model number 1 is when law enforcement has been contacted, 911 has been called, and law enforcement has been called out. Again, the CIT training helps there because it helps them understand what they're engaging with, gives them an idea of the resources that they might be able to refer folks to. But again, at that point, they can still, refer out to these other CIT or crisis models for help. Intercept model number 2 is that they have been booked into jail. So they are detained in the local county jail. And that's where we come in with the assessments and trying to figure out what services have they had, what services do they need, are they actually going to be released from jail to the community, and then we can start making those referrals and get services set up at that level. Intercept model 3 is when somebody's going through the court system, seal, and my program does not work specifically in the court system. Where we work is with the defense attorneys, county attorneys, letting them know what's the realistic outcome for this person in court, what kind of plan do you want us to help us set up with you for that detainee. Intercept model 4 is the reentry, and that's reentry from prison, that's reentry from county jails. They're going to be released, they need to be released to some kind of service. That may be a residential substance abuse program, that may be a service array in the community. And then intercept model 5 is where they're involved with community corrections, they're on probation, they're on parole, and we can be a resource for that as far as what services are available. And then we've already kind of gone over this in a different varieties of ways. Ryan talked about the services, so again, it just gives you more specifics on Intercept 1, what kinds of things should be available. Warm lines, hotlines, mobile crisis, some kind of a professional to respond, crisis stabilization like 23-hour, where somebody can pick somebody up, take them to that 23-hour observation, drop them off, and they can kind of just chill out for a little bit, get an assessment, kind of relax in a nice comfy recliner as you saw in Ryan's slides. Or an access center, or a peer-run crisis support center, or a peer-run respite center. We only have a peer-run respite center in the state over in the Quad Cities area. And then, substance use. We need to beef up our substance abuse early intervention options like the diversion services, self-referral programs, active outreach, opioid response teams. ADS here in Des Moines County does have a peer specialist that is able to work with anybody who has an addiction issue, so they don't have to be receiving ADS services. You can call, and then that ADS person can meet with those individuals, kind of help them get to what they need as far as the substance or addictions treatment array. And then Intercept Model 1, that's the trainings. One of the things that CIT, our training model, looked at early on was dispatcher training. So giving dispatchers training on when they're getting a crisis call, give them some more support, give them some more training on, what does this mean? What do you ask? How do you dispatch the officer that's going to be going out to that call? Things kind of hit the COVID scene, and so we never fully followed up on that. That might be something we revisit with 988 coming into play. That would be up to probably our CIT committee to discuss, and then bring that to the region if they think that's a good idea. The other thing that's critical through all of these Intercept models is data sharing, which is pretty difficult in Iowa if you want to data share about your frequent call-outs for emergency services. It's just not possible in Iowa right now, and so Des Moines County is really working on how do we talk about these frequent flyers that are needing emergency services, and they'll report to us when they figure that out. So data sharing is also important for money. I know our governing board, the management team has preached to the governing board. We really need to be funding services based on the data that shows that this is going to be a service that's going to get you the response you want. It's going to be a good investment for your money. And I know that the governing board has talked about what's the data on that. I know I've heard Tom talk about what's the data on that. So we are getting the message that we really need to know what's the story behind this. Is it going to get the outcome we want so that we can invest the money in that and make our communities better for our folks that are living in them. Intercept 2, again, is where my staff come in. When somebody's booked into jail, the jails will do a brief mental health screener. That'll rule the person into being referred to our staff to offer our services. Our services are voluntary. And then my staff will also potentially do another screener, because when somebody's being booked in, if they're under the influence, if they're still kind of heightened mentally and emotionally by their crisis situation, they may not be giving the best answers. So my staff may run the screener again with them when they're a bit calmer, or they're definitely, the system has kind of worked out some of those substances that are in their system. And again, data matching allows our justice of all services to kind of get folks into diversion services. So data is important. Element 4, transition planning. Again, my staff makes a plan of what are you going to be willing to do that's going to get you a different outcome this time, and try and get you to maybe get into a job, maybe get into some integrated health home, case management services, making sure that when somebody is discharged from jail as quickly as possible, if they aren't leaving jail with a prescription or they aren't leaving jail with their leftover medications, how can we make sure that we get them to a prescriber and to medications quickly? Because we all know if somebody's gotten baseline on medications while they're in jail, they don't have access to them when they get out into the community, it's gonna be pretty quick, they're gonna decompensate, and then there's gonna be a call for emergency services, and we're gonna get that cycle going again. And then Intercept 5, again, is medication-assisted treatment for the substance abuse, opioid disorders, and then access to recovery supports, getting them back on their Medicaid, getting them back on their Social Security if they had that, helping them get housing, helping them get into employment. All of these things help people keep their mental health stable and keep them in the community so that they don't have to keep interfacing with law enforcement or emergency services. Again, what our program does, what we're trying to do is reduce the number of people with brain health injuries that are booked into jail. We want them to go to services, not get booked into jail. We want to shorten the length of stay for those folks with brain health issues while they're in jail. So we want to figure out what's the crime, what's the severity of it, are they going to be able to be released? If they're going to be able to be released, then we're going to work on a plan to get them handed off, get a warm handoff to providers. Obviously, if they're not going to be released from jail, then our focus is going to be on those that can be released, and those that are probably going to have a prison term come out of it. We don't focus so much on those. And then we want to reduce folks that are coming back to jail with a brain health injury, because we've helped them get into the right array of services when they're released. Screening identification, connection to services, those are all things that we are working on actively while they're in jail with us. Same thing, just kind of maybe a little bit more description on that. So the referral options we're working on getting them back into basic needs when they're released: food, housing, Medicaid, general assistance, transportation, getting them connected to treatment, outpatient, brain health, addictions treatment, residential treatment. Residential treatment could be a change of jail site. Somebody has charges, but the court will go ahead and do a change of jail site so that they can go to residential addiction treatment and then come back and finish out their court issues. Getting them into medical services, getting them a physical with a primary care provider, getting case management services or care coordination, getting our veterans hooked back up with their local veterans office, and then getting them support services for voc rehab, employment and job development services, getting them the information for their local NA and AA groups, providing family support, because most of our detainees are not single detainees who don't have wives and children and family at home. So we are looking at the family support needs of that detainee and seeing if there's supports we can put into place for them as they prepare to return to their family. Peer support is important, supported community living services, and supported housing. When I do my CIT training, I like to have some slides in there that talk about things to think about when you're supporting somebody during a crisis. Delusional pain hurts just as much as pain from a physical injury or physical trauma. When somebody has a trauma reaction, they're not having a memory, they're actually having a physical reaction to something that may have happened 10 years ago, but the situation, though completely unrelated to what happened 10 years ago, is the same kind of action that happened 10 years ago, and so they're going to respond to that. And again, we all hear people don't fake depression, they fake being okay. Most people cover their symptoms until they just can't cover them anymore. And some days, people don't care about anything. Yeah, it's like, fine, I'm not gonna sweat the small stuff. And the next day, if their name's spelled wrong on their coffee cup at Panera, it's gonna send them over the end. So, that's some of the things that folks face. And then we do have, this is a list of some of the providers that had RSVP'd to TED that they would attend. They provide a variety of the services, and so I will, as best I can, pick out the ones I'm familiar with. I'm getting to be such good professional friends with Hope Haven and Optimum, so I just want them to go over, more specifically what services that they are offering. So You look eager.
I'm up,
I'm
all
gonna
right.
have you start. Remember, introduce yourself.
So my name is Dina Garrison and I'm at Hope Haven here in Burlington. I supervise the crisis stabilization residential services that Ryan talked about earlier. So we have a 5-bed crisis house here in Burlington. Access to that crisis program, it can be done through the emergency room, an inpatient behavioral health unit, and then in the community where a mental health assessment can be done. Optimate, Denise is going to talk about their mental health assessments as well. They do a large portion of our referrals as well. So a person comes in and all of the services here on the screen we would do while a person is with us. So we meet with them and see what they need, what they want, and that's what we do while we're with them. So the first 5 days of the stay is Medicaid funded. If a person doesn't have Medicaid, it doesn't exclude them from the services. SEAL pays for that service for them if they do not have Medicaid. And then there's a maximum stay of up to 6 weeks, as long as they're working on the goals to return safely to the community. Anything else you want me to add?
We'll put
Yeah.
April on the spot. How many people are in the crisis program today?
Today, there are only 2 clients in our crisis program. So right now, I would say we're a bit underutilized, and a lot of that is the information is not getting to the right people. So that's why I'm here today and asking, hey, you know anybody who needs some crisis services? Because we have some beds available.
Again,
So-
why we've done the relaunch and
Yeah.
have the providers there to make sure that we can get the public aware that.
We
these
did
services
change our referral and assessment process at the beginning of 2020 because there was, huge amount of people who did not want to go to the emergency room, and I don't blame them. I mean, that was where people were getting sick, so we started accepting referrals from the community, and I think that helped for a portion of time. And again, I think it's just being able to get the information out there for people to know what we have available. It's a really good service. It's been a successful service. We've been up and going for 8 years, and the staff do a phenomenal job, so.
You want to talk about dual before you?
Yeah, so I also supervise a dual diagnosis residential care facility here in Burlington for clients who have chronic mental health needs and substance abuse issues. ADS comes in and does our substance abuse counseling for the clients there on site. And there's also a therapist who comes in and does therapy groups and individual sessions with the clients. So, yeah.
I asked a question in the previous work session that I hadn't completely formed in my mind. It'd been long enough. Several months ago, I was at a meeting and I think Chad was there, and there was discussion, of people that become justice involved with brain health issues and substance abuse issues. Well, if they go to ads, Medicaid will fund them through public health, and if they would go to an MHDS, I believe the crisis center, someplace they would be funded through Medicaid, and all of that would be DHS. Am I making sense so far? Anyway, DHS, let me back up. So if they go to court and the judge says, if you'll go take a treatment at River Cross for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it might be, we will apply that as your sentence.
So like a change of venue.
A change of venue,
Yeah.
something like that. You can do that with public health rules,
Yeah.
but you can't do that with the other rules.
It's
Is
a
that
separate-
still?
It's a separate funding stream, so.
So it doesn't work very well if they have, so it doesn't work for River Cross then?
No, because we're habilitation funded, which is a voluntary service.
So, in other words, so the individual is offered on one hand, you could go there and serve your sentence, and the other one, that doesn't serve your sentence, but you can go there, so they should go, screw this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in residential treatment, typically it's a 28, 30-day program, whereas ours is much more longer term. So a person doesn't just get the substance abuse need, they work on their rehabilitation goals to return safely to the community in a longer term setting. Work on a lot more intense goals as well. So being habilitation funded, we did talk about that. We actually had a meeting, right before we opened. Bob was a part of it. And I think you were on the meeting as well.
Might have been, we
Yeah,
talked
you
about
were.
it anyway, it just seemed that
Talked about
it's
the
too
change of
bad
venue, what
that
the
the judge
rules
wouldn't have
were.
that option.
Right, yeah. The county attorney determined that wouldn't be an option.
Thank you.
Yeah.
April, do you want to go ahead and talk about the rest of Hope Haven?
I'm gonna let Eva talk first about IPS.
Thank you.
Great. So, I'm Eva Castillo. I'm the Director of the Employment Services Program at Hope Haven. So about take you back to October of 2019, no, 2021, I have to think about the years here. Hope Haven was identified as an early adapter of the IPS program. So the IPS program is the Individual Placement and Support Program, which goes along with the Employment and Job Development Services. So basically, we've been running that since October. We have a staff identified to help individuals find employment that suffer from brain health, obviously. Some other co-occurring disorders that could play into that, reentry, substance abuse. The cool thing about this employment program is that it is zero exclusion. So it doesn't matter if you're stable or not. The evidence-based practice shows that finding work and being employed and being part of your community can help that overall health. So whether you're homeless, have some of those issues, we're going to help you still work through those things by whatever that needs and how employment can help that. So we have certified staff doing that. Again, it's one staff can handle up to 20, and she's already serving about 18 individuals. Funding can come through Medicaid, Iowa Vocational Rehabilitation Services, and the SEAL region has given us seed money to support those individuals that may not qualify for either one of those programs. You know, funders, I guess you would say. So the other two providers in the state are Vera French and Robert Young. So we're the only ones in this area, so we're serving Des Moines, Henry, Lee, Louisa County, and we've just been tapped into Jefferson County because it's a need and there's no other providers doing it. So employment is part of that recovery, and that's what we're doing.
And so it stops that cycle of, oh no, we can't get you into supported employment because you're still actively psychotic or actively have brain health symptoms, or you're still actively doing substance use things that are preventing your stability from taking off. So they can be unstable and not really well, but they can still work on getting a job, and that's awesome because that's gonna help them get to the stability we all want them to achieve.
And it's a long-term or a short-term service that provides you with a job coach that can help, you know, whether it's on the job site you need support, or if it's off-site where you're working on coping, I mean, we're helping people get to their therapy appointments or just taking them to meetings. I mean, we want to help them be successful in whatever that may need to be. So, obviously, Hope Haven's been providing employment services since 1989 in Burlington and in the surrounding counties. So we have certified job coaches that provide all kinds of supports in different settings about employment. So, any questions for me? No? Thank you.
I love how you can get a job right away too with this program.
Yeah.
You don't have to be in a training program for a month or 2 months or 5 months before you get the job. You actually can get right to work.
Yeah, we've had, I should have said that. Of the 17, we have 3-4 people placed now. So they're working and being, you know, getting back in the recovery and doing those things. And all good things are happening out of those successes. So thank you, Kim. Yes.
Okay, so I'm April Van Hammy. I'm a senior director at Hope Haven. In addition to the services that Dina and Eva just talked about, Hope Haven also offers a variety of residential services. We have, oh goodness, I don't know, 25 or so, maybe more, 30 site homes that are in the community in Henry, Lee, Des Moines counties. Those homes are anywhere from 3 to 5 individuals living together with staff, supporting them at whatever level of care they require. We provide services residentially to folks who are intellectually disabled or have a brain health diagnosis. We also offer rehabilitation services to people with either side of that diagnosis. Those programs are offered in Lee, Henry, Louisa, and Des Moines counties. That's more of a kind of leisure activity, recreational activities, getting people out into the community, integration, that sort of thing. We have 2 drop-in centers, one in Lee, one in Louisa. Those are funded completely by SEAL. We do have a peer support specialist, I believe, in both of those locations, correct? Yeah. What else do we do? What am I missing? We have an intermediate care facility, which is for individuals who have the more severe and profound intellectual disabilities. That's a 16-bed license that we're looking at maybe restructuring a little bit differently. Hourly supported community living, thank you, Dina, where individuals live independently in the community or perhaps still in the family home, and we have a staff person that goes in and works with them intermittently throughout the week, a couple hours at a time, that sort of thing. And some limited respite services as well. I think that covers it. Any questions for me? All right.
The drop-in recovery centers are non-eligibility based, and they're wonderful. People can just walk in, sign in. They don't have to do a whole bunch of paperwork. The Seal Region funds the service in all of our counties, I believe, with different providers. And it's a great thing for like people on a waiting list. They're waiting for the BI waiver to start, or they're waiting for the, one of the Iowa waivers to start, so they don't have funding yet, but they can go into these day programs and get a free meal and get, activities and all kinds of support. So it's a wonderful thing.
Okay, Denise, I'm gonna have you go next. Okay.
Do you want me to come up there?
You can stand up and just need your full name.
Okay, my name's Denise Stutz. I'm with Optimay Life Services. I'll just come up there. I'm part of the crisis assessment team. I've been part of the team for about 6 years now. But now we kind of took it over to where there's a more wider region, basically. So there's 2 therapists on call at all times. We are on call 24 hours, 7 days a week, holidays, whatever. We take calls from law enforcement, hospitals, pretty much any agency that we're contracted with. We provide the assessment, and then we make the referral to like Hope Haven, First Resources, or to any other, like maybe even to another agency for follow-up therapy services. They don't have to stay with Optimay. We can send them wherever they want to go. We do have urgent care slots open during the day. So during the day, we have a dispatcher. So Dory is our dispatcher, and she does 8 to 5, but anything after 5, one of our on-call therapists will answer the phone. So you will always get somebody, even at 2 a.m. Any questions?
Do you want to talk just a little bit on the other services that Optimay has?
With the urgent care, or?
Like they have drop-in centers or recovery centers?
Oh, yes, so we have drop-in centers, we have recovery center where people can go and enjoy the day. They can spend time with staff, they can, there's meals provided. And so if they have trouble accessing food, they cook there, so they get a free lunch. Transportation to and from the place so that they can enjoy games. They can just sit on the couch and watch TV if that's what they want to do, or they can engage in other things, so.
And they provide the rural recovery drop-in center here in
Burlington, yes, that's here in Burlington. And I'm not really I kind of participate in those, but I'm not involved with those as much as I am with the crisis assessment team, so.
And those urgent care appointments, like Optimay has urgent care appointments in your contract, so if somebody needs an appointment, they can get in. Like, say they already have a therapist, but the therapist can't get them in for a long time, but they're having a crisis, they could go to an Optimay office and get that right away.
Yeah, we see people that have different therapists, like what you were saying, and they just can't get into them, but they're having a crisis right now. And so we have so many slots open during the day per week, and one of us would be able to fit them in somewhere, so they can usually be seen that same day.
So I sometimes tell people, okay, this is the Optimay phone number for Burlington. You can call there and ask for a crisis appointment. When I find out somebody's in a crisis, they can't get in anywhere else. And it does help to have a number to give them to call and tell them it's a crisis appointment that you need.
Okay, I'm gonna go and I'm going to ask ads, Shelley and Laura.
Okay, sorry, caught me off guard. I don't know if you guys can see me down here. I'm gonna talk over Chad. So, my name is Tamara Nunez. I am the peer support supervisor for ADS. I've been with ADS for 8 years in several different capacities. ADS serves Lee County, Des Moines County, Henry County, and Louisa County. We have 3 levels of care here in the Burlington location. We have level 1 outpatient, we have level 2 outpatient, which is sometimes considered partial hospitalization. And then we have a 20-bed co-ed residential facility that unfortunately is only 60 days now. We are not long-term, like we used to be. We have a corrections counselor that their team works with closely. My passion, however, is peer support. I myself graduated from AD's residential program and their outpatient program, and then came back to work. So all of those peer support that you have seen, that's me. In the last couple of years, I have been to the jails to see clients. I have been to the police departments. I've been to the fire departments. I am currently doing group at the inpatient behavioral health unit. I have a lady that goes to Mount Pleasant to the drop-in center and does group with people. My goal is to have peer support available 24/7. And y'all can clap for me because I just hired my 4th person, so I am fully staffed. That was a long time coming, so I now have a peer support specialist in all 4 offices. I have been overwhelmed with the support from every single agency, from Burlington PD, where I pulled some personal strings, not gonna lie, to the fire department, where I again pulled some personal strings. Everyone has been very receptive to my program, to my presentation. Friday morning, I have a presentation, a training at the hospital with the behavioral health team, because they've asked ads and they've asked me, how do I talk to people with brain health issues? How do I talk to people like me? So I feel like this committee, all of us coming together, is really opening doors. I'm stepping into one of those doors on Friday, and I'm going to be able to teach medical professionals how to effectively engage with people with substance use disorders and people with brain health issues, so that we can make the proper referrals, so that we can build trust with people, so that so many of our fellow citizens are not dying. I was talking to Jeff Klein last night, telling him about a social experiment that I'm getting ready to do and take to the legislature. And we were talking about almost every single day in this city, one of our friends and one of our families dying from an overdose. That's unacceptable. And I am going to take a presentation to the legislature before I leave Iowa, and I'm going to try to advocate for more harm reduction, more stigma. Let's learn how to talk to people, meet them on their level, treat them as human beings, and you will find that those connections will be there. And again, if I don't admit to you out loud that I'm hearing voices, how are you gonna get me the services that I need? Because when we're in active addiction, when we're in a crisis with a brain health issue, we don't trust people. And if we are not being treated as human beings, I'm not gonna admit to you that I need services, that I'm gonna need to stay stable. So this is what I feel like we're all working together to do, and this is the part that ADS plays in that. We have a medicated assisted treatment clinic in our building. I don't know if everybody even knows that. We have to date helped probably, I would say, 100 citizens in our 4 counties become stable and live and get back to their families and get back to their jobs. It is my goal to destigmatize medicated assisted treatment, because it helps people, just like our mental health meds, just like our cholesterol meds, just like any other medication that we're on, become stable and become productive members of society again. And that is really our goal. These are things that ADS is proud to be a part of. I am proud to be a part of, because again, I will say this everywhere that I go, this town, this community, this man in particular, I went to his church when I was in treatment and was treated like a human being. This place gave me a second chance, and here I am standing here alive today because of it. So I really believe in the village concept. I know some of you have heard me say that before at various functions. I believe in the village concept because I'm a product of the village concept. So I really have a lot of buy-in, and I really believe in this process. Thanks.
Shall I do anything to that?
I don't work in prevention.
I do.
No, I can't speak for her. Shelley's side runs a whole different, so yes, go. Sorry.
Jay from First Resources, I'll pick on you now.
Hi, so I am Jay, I'm from First Resources in Fairfield.
What's your last name?
Engel. And I am the Crisis Stabilization Supervisor. I'm gonna keep it short because we do essentially the exact same thing that Hope Haven does. We have a 5-bed residential service. We help people get on medication. We help them meet with therapists. We help them get stable with whatever brain health issues that they're currently struggling with. I don't know, you guys summed it up pretty well. We're in Fairfield, we exist. We currently actually just discharged our last person, so if you guys have anyone in the region, definitely send them our way if they need our services.
First Resources has you actually have 4 drop-in centers, right? 3 in our region?
I believe so, yes.
And then you do integrated health home?
Mm-hmm, yes.
And do some substance addiction treatment?
We refer people. We work a lot with CEDA and with ads. So, does anyone have any questions for me?
Is Kurt still with you guys?
Kurt, yeah.
Kirk's still there?
Yep.
Okay. Is he still providing substance use services?
Yes, he is.
Thank you. Yep. I think I will move to Jennifer now. Jennifer Lehman?
Well, I don't know. Hi, I'm Jennifer Lehman. I'm the grant manager at Eagleview Community Health System in Aquaca. Eagleview serves a 5-county area, 4 counties in Illinois, but then also the side of the river we serve Des Moines County. I don't know that I want to go into a lot of detail because a lot of the plans that we have are done through a competitive grant process. And so right now we're competing for those grants, and if we get them, there will be some enhancement of services that everyone has already been talking about. I love what you said about harm reduction services. We're hitting the harm reduction services pretty hard with a lot of grants and peer support specialists. Hopefully, if we get a big grant, we'll have a certified community behavioral health clinic, and that's what Sarah was talking about. So there would be 24-hour crisis management, a mobile unit that we would have with that. And I think that's, I don't know, questions? Aquaca, Illinois, yes. Yeah, we have a clinic in Aquaca, we have one in Stronghurst, and we're in the process of opening one in Monmouth. And then we have the Burlington High School Clinic here in Burlington.
Great River Behavioral Health? I don't want to say your name wrong.
Yeah, I'm Yasmina Amidzik. Should I spell that for whoever's recording?
Would you even say that? Would you call that?
Yasmina, Jasmina. And then my last name's Amidzik, Amidzik. I'm Bosnian, so it's a little different.
If you're Bosnian, you can spell your name like that and get away with it.
So I'm with the Geriatric Behavioral Health Unit in the Fort Madison Hospital, now Southeast Iowa Regional Medical Center. And we are 55 and above inpatient units, so we accept anyone with any psychiatric diagnosis that's 55 and older. And you can use our service by contacting us, and we will fax over things to you, and then we can go through the referral process like that. Or you can just go through the ER, and our behavioral health team knows to use us through that. We're pretty new. It's been a little over a year. So I don't know if a lot of people know about us completely. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. I do a lot of outreach and stuff like that, so.
do you take referrals from besides the emergency rooms?
Literally anyone. So anyone that's having a mental health crisis. A lot of nursing homes will contact us because we do hit that age range. And so I'm from Des Moines, and I didn't realize how many people from Southeast Iowa, if they have that mental health diagnosis, they if they have nowhere to go, they just are put into a care facility. So a lot of care facilities contact us about people like that, and we work really closely with the care facilities, but literally anyone. I get calls from, like I said, we only serve 55 and up in my unit, but I'll get calls from a grandma that I did a presentation, like last week I did a presentation at the Salvation Army, and she just had questions for her 14-year-old granddaughter, and so they can call and ask, and then we can refer elsewhere. But yeah, anyone can call and just ask, and I'll be there to answer.
Thank you. I will go on then, and community health center staff. Picking on folks, and then I.
Picking on both of us here.
Well, you got a partner though, so it's.
Yeah, I have a partner. Pam Bloomer, I'm a social worker there. I just had started, so I'm like, just in April. So they've never had a social worker, so brand new out there. So, and then actually Kim can.
Yeah, my name's Kim Hickson, and I'm in a new position as well. I've been there for 8 years at different entities, but I started a community health worker position that I'm still kind of developing. So I do help people with barriers, not as deep as Pam, but I do also help like with all of their insurance needs. And recently I've partnered with the Halfway House. I got a hold of Daryl, gave him my information so that I can kind of be a liaison with the Halfway House guys that are a lot of our patients. And I next wanted to partner with ads and kind of do the same thing so that I can help them before their appointments, before they're seen, to know what needs they have, get them in to the right referrals, have their insurance needs taken care of ahead of time, because it's confusing for our front staff when they don't know the difference between parole and probation and who can be on Medicaid, who can't be on Medicaid. So I can help them with sliding fee discount if you know that is the only thing that they're eligible for. I did talk to Candace about I know with the probation and parole office, I get calls sometimes. My daughter-in-law is a probation officer, and I know sometimes she'll call me and have me do releases for some of the patient or some of her clients, and it's just kind of easier when you can have one person to kind of go through, because I know we are 4 clinics as well, and we have a call center, and sometimes you don't end up where you want to be right away. So anyway, yeah, this is my first meeting, and I've learned a lot today, which is pretty cool, and I'm glad to have Pam on board. She's my partner in crime. So.
That she is. I mean.
All right, thank you. And then we have Eric from In-House Family Services.
Morning, Eric Schilling, I'm the Executive Director for Young House Family Services. We're in quite a bit of a transition as an agency right now, putting a lot more emphasis on our residential care, which is a qualified residential treatment program, currently located at Christamore, but we're in the process of relocating to our location south of Burlington. We deal with kids that are juvenile court adjudicated and kids in foster group care. That's one of the main efforts that we run through DHS. We have previously offered individual and family therapies due to the workforce participation. That has kind of come to a suspended activity right now. It's a challenge finding therapists, as I'm sure many locations in here know. And so we're taking those resources and applying it to the residential. We do a number of in-home health services. So we do the pediatric home health. We also do behavioral health intensive services, so BHIS. That's where we have caseworkers go out in the community to do behavioral health interventions Then we also do direct intervention services, mainly targeting youth through funding through the DCAT board here. So we'll go into the house for a limited period of time, funded through them to try to get kids that are in crisis or having behavioral health issues, brain health issues, back to stabilized. And so those are the ones that we tend to do a lot of. We also have we're part of the aftercare network. So we provide aftercare services for youth that are aging out of the system, but still eligible for care to help them transition towards adulthood and individual living. We also were working with, and that will come to an end of the year with the school year, providing therapy services in school for those kids during the school day. And so that's largely where we're at right now. But again, just a lot of transition due to really a lot of workforce shortages out there to find folks that want to get into some tough but rewarding business.
Sarah from Transitions DMC.
Hi, I'm Sarah Dittner. I'm the director down at Transitions. We offer housing. We just opened our 13-bed emergency homeless shelter. It was in January, but it feels like it just opened. So we had an open house this past weekend to celebrate that milestone. So basically we take folks with any kind of issue as long as they're homeless. So we see a lot of the same folks that everyone here sees. And we connect with everyone here in order to get them the services for brain health and substance abuse and physical health as well.
I have been looking for you. I've been looking for your number.
You found her.
I didn't hide very well, did I?
No, you did not. I need your number.
All right.
Because yes.
We'll talk. We're on South Main Street here in town. Yep. Right next to Jerry's.
You serve just.
No,
She's done.
I'm gonna cut Sarah out, she might come back to take it out on me later. I said I didn't wanna cut you off, Sarah, you might come back to take it out on me later, so.
I would never.
I'm Ted Cushman with Mental Health Advocate for Des Moines, Henry, Washington, the Wise counties, and involved with CIT regional planning and local CIT meetings. Basically, as an advocate, we're assigned through the court at the time an individual's committed, and we follow them, basically track and monitor them the entire time they're in the committal to make sure, one, that they're compliant, but then two, to make sure that they're not hitting any bumps along the way and try to make it as smooth a transition for them as possible. So it's a lot of networking, interacting with courts, providers, law enforcement. Not so much community because it's confidential proceedings. So as far as that side of it goes, there has to be a release in place for me to talk directly with people, but at the same time, I'm able to listen and then reapply what I'm hearing and transfer that on to whoever needs to know, whether it's the courts, whether it's the providers, that kind of stuff, and just kind of make sure that their rights are not being violated, that they're not being falling through the cracks, and just to make sure that everything's going as smoothly as possible and they're getting the highest level of, I guess, the lifestyle that they deserve, so that they're doing as well as they can and make sure everything goes smooth, which kind of puts it in a position where the CIT aspect of it's perfect because it is the networking, it's working with all the providers I'm working with regularly anyway, and then doing what we can to build up, I guess, awareness and I guess kind of a platform within the community that we can all come together and just kind of work on getting to the bottom of issues, learning about other availability that providers have, what different agencies offer, and just kind of putting our heads together and coming up with an idea of what we can do to help out and keep people out of the hospital or keep people on the other end of the law, keep them out of trouble, and just do whatever we can to, benefit them the most.
Anybody else I missed, because I haven't figured out what your acronym means? I've been looking.
And I guess I'll say one more thing, like Chad pointed out, we've got our meetings the second Thursday of every month at 10 o'clock at the police department. Most of you guys are there, I know a lot of you guys, they're monthly. If you guys know anybody that's interested, get them there. The more people we can have, the better off we are, and it is making a difference. We're doing a lot, and we got a long ways to go, but we've got a great group that's working now and, doing it in other counties. I do one in Washington as well, and we're working on getting one set up in Henry and the Wise counties that I also cover. And just where we've come with this one in a short amount of time, I think is just astronomical, and it's very beneficial to the people we work with.
Anything I missed, Chad, for CIT?
We've identified those meetings, we've identified a lot of issues. Not a lot of solutions, but a lot of issues, but we're working on it, so.
I kind of forgot one more thing. Transitions is looking for other organizations that are interested in starting up either a tiny home village for homeless with supportive services, or we've also looked at purchasing and renovating the Lincolnville. Transitions isn't doing this, but we're looking for other groups that want to partner in searching grant funding. So we are working with Southeast Iowa Regional Planning. Right now we're pursuing National Housing Trust Fund money's on that. So if anybody's interested in that project, just give me a holler and we'll get you on the invite list to the meetings.
Thanks. Okay, Chad, anything I missed for CIT?
I don't think so.
Okay, awesome. So this slide is all of the coordinators of disability services in our 8-county region and their addresses and their phone numbers. I pulled it from an annual report and it didn't have emails on it, so sorry. And then the last folks I want to introduce is my staff. So Melissa, why don't you go first and then Jordan, I'll have you stand up.
Apologize that we weren't here the entire time, but we had to set up those wonderful cookies out there, and by the time we were done, you guys were started, and we didn't want to disrupt you. So, I'm Melissa Mace. I am the Justice Involved Service Coordinator for Des Moines County Jail and Louisa County Jail.
And I'm Jordan Underback. I'm the Justice Involved Service Coordinator for Lee and Van Buren County Jail.
And so these two in the jail are experts to know what everybody does to figure out what detainee is going to work best with what provider when they're released from jail. So figuring out somebody can't go here on a change of jail site because it requires insurance and their insurance isn't going to be in place, or knowing where those public health grant dollars are, where somebody can go and start a service using the public health grant dollars, and in the 2 or 3 weeks that it takes for their Medicaid to get started, then they can be getting services. So that's their job, to figure out how to get these folks into something that's gonna hopefully give them the opportunity to become more stable, responsible citizens and not have to be chronically in crisis.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your.
Oh, Ted. Ted, and last name's Cushman.
Chad?
Ted, with a T.
Ted.
Yep, sorry about that.
Ted, you made a statement there that really hit me hard, and I think this is what this is all about. You said to give them the lifestyle that they deserve, and that's what you're all reaching for. That was a very good statement.
Appreciate it.
You know, just to piggyback on that, we have all kinds of services for people that are having medical issues. You know, like heart attack, you call an ambulance, they come pick you up. The mental health issues isn't something they choose. It's a medical condition, just like somebody having a heart attack. But there aren't the same services. You know, you can't call somebody when in the community, when somebody's suffering from a crisis, they call the police department. You know, I guess that's what I would like to see change, is that we have something in place as a state, that when somebody's suffering from a mental crisis or whatever, that we have people to call them, not law enforcement.
Yeah.
You know, that we show up and they get nervous and it doesn't, I mean, we're trained to de-escalate, but why even start that issue? If not a law enforcement problem, then let's figure this out and try and.
Do you think this 988 number will take that if it gets go nationwide? We're hoping anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on it.
The key to that success is that 988 has to attach to the local level, every single local level, just like 911 does now. When you dial 911, you know that somebody is going to come to you. 988 has to have that capacity, which takes a lot of money,
Yeah.
but it is needed. Because that pressure shouldn't be applied to our law enforcement.
True.
So, yep.
So go ahead, Al.
So maybe for my recap is, I'm also on the Mental Health and Disability Services Commission for the state. And we were talking about, you know, what we need to do. And I guess this is my opinion of being in this business for 20 years, is that what we need to return to is we need to return to teachers being able to teach and law enforcement officers being able to do law enforcement work, and having social workers and mental health providers that are there to do the crisis work.
Preach.
That's what we need. Because law enforcement's a lot better at policing. They are, though their training's getting better, they're not trained and their passion isn't in crisis. Teachers' passion is in teaching kids. We need to give them the tools so that they can teach kids, not do crisis intervention and suicide intervention and all of those stuff. That's what the state needs to get back to. Thank you, everybody. And we tried to keep this at 90 minutes. We were a little bit late getting technology set up, so thanks for sitting with us. And I'm glad that some of you learned some good stuff today.
Hey, Taylor, can I just say one thing to you? You're my hero, and I had nothing to do with what you did. That was all on you. So I just wanna say that I appreciate the nice
No,
shout
I
out, but
understand what you're
that was
saying.
all on you, honey. You did all that.
I did.
Bless you.
I
Bless you.
did. But what I try to emphasize to people is the human aspect. I remember, Shane, every single person in your congregation, when I was living in a treatment center and I walked in those doors, there are people when I was in crisis, looked me in the eye, treated me with respect, treated me like a human being. That made a huge impact. This is what I try to emphasize every training, every teaching that I go to, is the impact. We make an impact on people. You can't say I don't make an impact on people.
You're making an impact,
Everybody
Mama.
makes an impact on people. I'm trying to emphasize how important it is to someone like me who was in horrible crisis on several different fronts when I met you. And you and your people treated me like a human being. And I walked away from there feeling better. Every interaction we have with people, we need to make sure that they feel better after, just like my interactions with you. That's why I say that to you. You were with me at my lowest.
So just a reminder, as we exit, could we please be like super quiet for the board, because that we were not being respectful to the viewers.
That is a reference to you guys. That's all to Jesse. He's got big feet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
You too.
Get all healed up.
I'm working on it.